Food security is the state of having reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. In Western Cape, we have some of the best food security statistics in the country, as shown in the graph on screen. And although this is great, there is always room for improvement. This section will talk about how good the food security is in the restaurant on De Grendel. This section will also talk about the food security of the workers on the farm and how they can improve this. In September of 2018, De Grendel implemented their very own 100% organic vegetable garden. This was to make sure the restaurant has a stable and reliable source of organic fresh vegetables, which are farmed without synthetic fertilizers, which contains byproducts of the petroleum industry. The organic garden provides the restaurant with a stable supply of aubergine, spinach, corn, courgettes, onions, broad beans, and a large arrangement of herbs. Since the restaurant is very expensive and not accessible for the worker, we believe that since the vegetable garden is grown on the farm, the workers of the farm should have access to it at all times. This will increase the workers' food security immensely because they will have fresh and organic produce that is great for their health. During coronavirus, maintaining food security has been a struggle for every food provider across the globe. And since the restaurant can't open yet, because of the Stage 3 rules, they have decided to deliver frozen and cooked meals to select areas in the northern suburbs, southern suburbs, and the city bowl. It helps people who don't want to go out to the shops during these unruly times to make sure that they have a source of food security. This, of course, only applies to those who can afford the somewhat expensive prices of the food made at the restaurant. Although the workers on the farm most likely cannot afford these frozen meals, people buying them also helps the people who work in the restaurant maintain a source of income, which will ultimately help their food security. Many poor people in our country are not as fortunate to work for such a great company such as De Grendel, and these people are left without a source of income due to the coronavirus or due to other reasons. They will be starving in the streets of Cape Town as we speak. This is why recently the farm has been reaching out to poor communities, such as Junun and Lulanga. They give these communities financial support, food, and clothing, which will increase their food security immensely. The farm has also donated plenty of PPE, otherwise known as personal protective equipment, such as masks and visors, to low-income hospitals in these two areas.
The main contributing factor to climate change is the alteration of land and loss of biodiversity. Natural land that has been converted into agricultural areas contributes to climate change by chopping down trees and plants that help cool the earth. The farm is surrounded by an unblemished natural vegetation area known as Renostusveld, home to rare and endangered floral species. This fragile ecosystem has been preserved for future generations, as well as to keep the shrubbery in immaculate condition. Carbon footprint leads to more greenhouse gas released, resulting in a spur of further climate change. De Grendel is proudly carbon negative, meaning that the farm releases less carbon into the air than it absorbs through the vegetation on the farm. The higher the concentration of greenhouse gases, the more energy trapped in the atmosphere. With more energy trapped, the planet warms, contributing to climate change. That is why De Grendel has invested in solar photovoltaic energy. The solar plant now powers a third of De Grendel's operation, resulting in further improvements in De Grendel's sustainability. Most unclean water entering wineries ends up as wastewater. Winery wastewater has high levels of chemical oxygen, potassium, and sodium. De Grendel have attached local garden streams and waterfalls towards the cellar. A series of agricultural drains seize stormwater through the wet season and send it down to the dam where it is circulated. Plant-wise, De Grendel took the lead from the fynbos found on Tygerberg, using butchu plants, restios, and proteas. Wild grape covers the De Grendel sell 1/3 of their produce on the local market, 1/3 from their winery, and 1/3 on the international market. Due to the alcohol ban for COVID-19, they weren't allowed to sell any produce. The ban disallowed the sale of alcoholic beverages and products. Luckily, De Grendel have a relatively large foothold in the international market, and they have still been able to operate and make money during the nationwide lockdown. Renostusveld is an evergreen, fire-prone shrubland occurring on moderately fertile, shale-derived soils, dominated by small-leaved shrubs with an understory of grasses and geophytes. Due to climate change, there will be an alteration of what type of plants will thrive in the future climate of the shrubland. Invasive grass species with high flammability will spread and increase fire frequency. Due to climate change,
there's a brand new vineyard that will only be grown organically and will therefore be grown completely naturally. In this vineyard, no pesticides are used, and it isn't protected from the dangers of hail or heat waves. There's also a large vegetable patch behind the restaurant where their chef gets a lot of his herbs from. The vegetable patch is fully organic. The farm also has its very own blueberry area, which is netted up in order to prevent locust attacks as well as harsh weather. Recycling. They reuse their barrels 3 to 4 times before selling them to be made into flower pots or furniture. The farm reuses wine bottles. They only package their wine bottles into sustainable packaging, such as eco-friendly cardboard, which is then used to help to make compost when they are finished with it. The restaurant has a no wastage policy in which all the leftover food is given to employees and composted. They have recycling bins around the entire farm, in which every single person on the farm has access to. Environment. The game consists of springbok, eland and bontebok. The heel that the farm lays on is a form of fynbos vegetation called renosterbos, and is the only remaining piece of renosterbos in South Africa and the world. This renosterbos makes up 1/3 of the farm and is heavily protected. Waste process. A company called Ivanisevic takes care of most of the farm's solid waste disposal. Ivanisevic is the largest waste removal company in South Africa and has been running since 1979. They take the waste that cannot be used to make compost. They remove waste from all bins around the farm and then take the waste to be recycled or composted. The farm recycles its pallets either by returning them to the supplier for credit or to a pallet recycling company. All the empty wine and cider bottles from the tasting room restaurant are sold to Worcester bottle traders for washing and reselling. Things like Port Jackson trees, wattle and myrtle, which is chipped and then added to compost. Old vineyards are also chipped and then used for compost. This compost helps with covering soil with organic material to improve microbial activity in the soil and organic fertilization in the vineyard. The compost infuses the soil with life.
Corporate social responsibility. Most of the workers that are employed at the Graaff wine farm, although having great working conditions compared to other large companies, are near the lower end of the economic spectrum. This comes with a number of problems, such as a lack of education, lack of medical care, lack of housing, and in certain circumstances, not great food security. Luckily, the farm treats its staff very well and provides all these things for them, otherwise these workers would be in a much worse condition. The main parts of the farm CSR is to educate and uplift the farm workers and their families. The workers' living situation on the farm. The farm workers are built up of about 90% local and 10% immigrant, and since usually live far away from the farm with little access to safe and cheap transport, they are provided with housing for free as long as they are working on the farm. Education. The primary focus is on the upliftment of farm workers' children and supporting their education. The farm has 2 school buses and provides free transport to and from schools in the area where the farm workers' children are in attendance. Example, Bosmansdam Primary. The Graaff also has an aftercare facility that is used by farm workers' children with computers and internet, where scholars can come and do their homework in the afternoon with assistance of a retired school teacher.
We as a group have come up with multiple solutions and other ideas to make the farm more sustainable. These ideas will be talked about later. We intend to set up a meeting with Slade Graaff to discuss implementing some ideas and discussing which ones are realistic and appropriate to implement.
The Graaff farm estates have clearly made a commendable effort in designing their operations to be as eco-friendly and sustainable as possible. As a group, we have come up with some possible further implementations. The ideas we have come up with are planting cover crops, Cover crops like clovers are planted during the off-season times when soils might otherwise be left bare. These crops protect and build soil health by preventing erosion and replenishing soil nutrients. This reduces the need for herbicides. We believe that there should be greater crop diversity, and with that will come healthier soil and improved pest control.
Solid waste disposal. In order to reduce waste and simultaneously increase sustainability, we have come up with a few factors that could be improved on in order to make the farm more sustainable. The farm can try to reduce the amount of waste that is currently being created by becoming creative with the materials that are being disposed of. Researchers at Oregon State University have discovered how to turn the pulp from crushed wine grapes into natural food preservatives, biodegradable packaging materials, and nutritional enhancement for baked goods. The farm can also try to increase their recycling by introducing a system of increased cycling bins and reusing wine corks.
Food security. As an alternative to buying from well-established food wholesalers such as Kirsten Foods that would not be seriously affected by the loss of one client, the Grendel could source fish through local fishermen and go to markets and buy the fish that were caught in somebody's fishing rod and not caught in the giant net. There are many fishermen who sell fish at Kalk Bay Harbour and also at markets near Muizenberg. Another issue that they can improve on is that they don't use grass-fed beef in the restaurant, and instead they feed them synthetic foods made just for making the animal grow faster. As a group, we have found a farm called Verda that breeds 100% organic and 100% grass-fed beef, which is known as the number one grass-fed beef wholesaler in the country. According to the Field and Flower in the UK, grass-fed beef is 300 to 400% high in CLA. This is conjugulated linolase acid. This nutrient is known to lower heart rate disease and your risk of cancer.
Improvement that can be made on their suppliers, Saga Foods, is that we can buy sources from local companies. We have located a local source company who was founded and run in Cape Town, South Africa. It is called Dunny's Sources, and we think it is definitely a potential supplier for De Grendel in the future.
For shortage of water by making sure they have the best irrigation system to conserve their water resources as efficiently as possible. De Grendel uses a system known as drip irrigation. This uses a lot less water than other types of irrigation. Measures taken in terms of disease. De Grendel has to manage fungal diseases on the farm. In order to manage these diseases, they have to monitor the vineyards regularly. Workers are sent into vineyards to inspect plants and to try and identify any fungus diseases growing. Once a disease is identified and they know what the threat is, they will make their own decision and have the best way to handle this disease.